Some Miami Dolphins news to break down on today's show. I am Nic Rohloff. This is Dolphins Today by Chat Sports because late on Tuesday evening, it was announced that the Miami Dolphins are adding someone to their coaching staff, that being former Texans offensive coordinator Bobby Slowik, the 37-year-old offensive coordinator. Parted ways with Houston this past offseason, got a head coach interview, ultimately did not get the job, was still being bounced around, and joins his former colleague Mike McDaniel down in Miami. And quick thoughts here before we look deeper into Slowik as a coach. I think this is an amazing hire. I am all for adding former coordinators to your coaching staff as assistants. Now, Miami's coaching structure is obviously very intriguing since Mike McDaniel calls the plays for the Dolphins offense, and you have so much experience in Frank Smith as your offensive coordinator. Darrell Bevell is a pass game coordinator and quarterbacks coach. But now with Slowik joining the fold, what does that mean for the Dolphins offense and how they call plays? We'll talk all about that on today's show. But this is why you subscribe and turn your notifications on, because I updated you on the news with a short last night, and now we're talking about it on today's episode. Join the channel, but also make sure you have those notifications turned on to all, not just personalized, so you never miss a piece of Dolphins content we put out. And maybe you do not know who Bobby Slowik is. Well, that's fine. Let me inform you, because Slowik was the offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans in 2023 and 2024, and him and McDaniel do have a working relationship. They both were on the San Francisco 49ers coaching staffs as assistants with Kyle Shanahan from 2017 to 2021 before McDaniel obviously got the call up to be the Miami Dolphins head coach. And there is also some family connections with the Miami Dolphins. Bobby Slowik's brother, Ryan Slowik, has been on the Dolphins coaching staff with McDaniel since 2022 as a linebackers coach, as a defensive assistant. So now they have both Bobby Slowik and Ryan Slowik on each side of the ball. And I'm a massive fan of this hire because, to me, you could never have enough experience on your coaching staff. And with Darrell Bevell being your quarterback's coach and helping with the pass game coordination, he's been an offensive coordinator every step of the way, basically since 2007 until he joined this Dolphins coaching staff. He almost left for the Raiders OC job, but they ultimately gave it to Chip Kelly, and he returns to the Dolphins staff in his current role. But then now you have another offensive coordinator joining. So you just have so many different opinions and successful play callers in the past working with this offense that could only help you create a more layered and versatile attack on the offensive end, which Miami desperately needs to do because it seems like their one-dimensional kind of passing attack was figured out in a way this past season. But back to Slowik, he is someone that has been well-respected around the NFL, and he is only 37 years old, and the fact that he has gotten 6 different head coach interviews, I think speaks to his thoughts and how people view him around the league. He interviewed for the New York Jets head coaching job this cycle, ultimately did not get it. Aaron Glenn got it, and that was before Slowik and Houston parted ways. But you saw the other list out there in 2024. The Atlanta Falcons, Seattle Seahawks, Tennessee Titans, Washington Commanders all talked to Bobby Slowik about potentially being their next head coach before they went in a different direction. Slowik returned to Houston, had a bit of a down in 2024 offensive season, which we'll talk about here in just a second, but I still think he is a very valid coach in the NFL. If you can't tell, I am excited about adding Bobby Slowik to this Dolphins offensive coaching staff. Are you excited about bringing in Slowik to help out Mike McDaniel, Frank Smith, and Darrell Bevell? If you are, type Y for yes or type N for no. I truly believe it will help Miami out in a big way, and this sparks a very serious conversation about what is going to be the hierarchy in this coaching staff offensively? Because McDaniel has called plays, but many people, myself included, have said and believed that McDaniel should think about giving up play calling. It feels like there just too much is on his plate at the moment. And with that being said, you could see someone in Slowik, Bevell, or Frank Smith get the opportunity to now take over play calling in Miami. Now, we will talk about who could ultimately get that if McDaniel gives up play calling. calling, but quickly looking at Slowik as a play caller and how he fared in Houston over the past 2 seasons, 2023 was a much better year than 2024. There's no debating that. Outside of the rushing attack in 2023, they were a top half offensive football team almost across the board. They were obviously very good in the passing game with Nico Collins, CJ Stroud as a rookie, and many people expected Houston's offense to be one of the best in the entire NFL again in 2024, but that wasn't the case. Whether you want to blame offensive line, CJ Stroud taking a step back, whatever you want to say, you saw the numbers. They just simply weren't as good. In middle of the pack in almost everything. They improved on the run game with Joe Mixon coming aboard in free agency, but other than that, they took a step back in points per game, the air attack, and like I mentioned, you could point to injuries. Stephon Diggs was a prize addition. He didn't play all year long. Tank Dell got hurt. Maybe it's a sophomore slump from CJ Stroud, or maybe it's just the offensive line not playing as well. But you did see Stroud win Rookie of the Year offensively in 2023 under the tutelage and coaching of Bobby Slowik. So you now bring him in to work with Tua. I think this is going to be an excellent addition to the Miami Dolphins coaching staff. And coming up in just a bit, we're going to look at what Slowik's role might be and how this impacts the Dolphins coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball, and if this might ultimately be a sign of Mike McDaniel giving up play calling. But before we do that, I got to give a shout out to Mando, the best whole body deodorant out there, the only one I trust to make sure I'm smelling right. And it gives me the confidence when I leave the house, and especially when I'm going on dates this time of year. Mando is safe to use anywhere on your body. It's created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. It's clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, plus free shipping. And I got a couple products in studio with me today from that starter pack that I really enjoy. Both of them travel to go. The deodorant wipes and the mini body wash. I'm going on a trip this weekend. Yeah, you can guarantee these are packed because I need to be smelling right on the go, and Mando makes sure I am. And as a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code CHAT. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you use code CHAT at shopmando.com. shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. Let's get back to the Dolphins coaching staff offensively, because these are the 4 guys that will ultimately have the biggest say. I didn't include the offensive line coach or the tight ends coach or anything like that, but when you talk about who is going into the game planning on a week-to-week basis and then the play calling, obviously McDaniel, as of right now, has not given up play calling, so we do have him expected to be the one calling the shots. Frank Smith, Darrell Bevel have been the 2 pass game coordinators and offensive coordinators over the past 2-3 seasons in Miami. They go into the game planning. They work with Tua specifically. And then now you're adding in Bobby Slowik, and his official role will be the senior pass game coordinator. So more of just a advisor, if you will, but I expect him to get his hands dirty and work with Tua on a daily basis and help scheme up the attack points for the Dolphins offense on a week-to-week basis. But this is the intriguing part here, because you now have, outside of Mike McDaniel, 2 former offensive coordinators in Darrell Bevel and Bobby Slowik who have called plays in their past. Could this be a sign that McDaniel is finally going to give up play calling, take more of a CEO type of role on this Dolphins football team, where maybe they do, and he still does, ultimately help scheme up the offense, but isn't calling plays on Sundays? I think that is something that he should seriously consider, because we have widely talked about how sometimes it feels like McDaniel's stretched too thin. He's in between a rock and a hard place of still wanting to call plays, but also trying to make sure his guys are prepared on a weekly basis and be the best motivator he can be. It's a tough job to do both, and not everybody is cut out to be able to do both, and it feels like McDaniel is one of those guys that needs to give up some of that play calling, and now with multiple guys that can do it in Slowik, Frank Smith, and Darrell Bevel, you have to wonder if he ultimately will. But you predict it for me. Before I give you what I think will ultimately go down, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Will Mike McDaniel give up play calling in 2025? Type G if you think he gives it up. Type K if you think he keeps it. I still believe that he does need to give it up because we've talked about it. The offense has gone downhill at the back half of the year over the last 2 or 3 seasons. It feels like McDaniel just gets too cute at times. I have talked at depth how much I cannot stand on 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, 4th and inches, these short yard situations, the screen passes, the jet sweeps, the end arounds, the halfback tosses. I think we need a fresh type of play calling in Miami. You could still run the same type of offense, but there just needs to be different thought processes when it comes to who is actually calling the plays. And I will say this, though. Even if Mike McDaniel gives up play calling, I'm not sure it would be given to Bobby Slowik, who was just hired to be a senior pass game coordinator. Frank Smith has been with McDaniel as the offensive coordinator for the past 3 seasons. Darrell Bevell, who has had 4 or 5 different stints as an offensive coordinator in the NFL, has still been on the staff for 3 seasons. So if McDaniel gives up play calling, it would be logical to give it to one of Frank Smith or Darrell Bevell, who aligns with McDaniel a lot more than the newly hired Bobby Slowik. I think I would be intrigued with Slowik calling plays, but if you do expect a change at play calling, I do believe it would be either given to Frank Smith, because he has been the offensive coordinator the past 3 seasons plus, or Darrell Bevell, who has been an OC in the past and has also been on this coaching staff with Mike McDaniel since 2022. But the interesting thing about Bobby Slowik is that maybe he could attract some free agents that liked playing underneath him in Houston to Miami because they know he will have a large voice and role on the Dolphins offense. Well, looking at the free agents to be from the Houston offense a year ago, these are the top 5 names: Stephon Diggs, Robert Woods, Kendrick Green, Irv Smith, and Case Keenum. Stephon Diggs is obviously an intriguing name because he's been a top wide receiver in the NFL, but coming off a catastrophic knee injury and him likely costing you at least double-digit $1 million per season, I would expect Miami to not pursue Stephon Diggs. But Robert Woods is your 4th wide receiver behind Malik Washington, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle. That's certainly a possibility. But a interesting name here is Kendrick Green, an interior offensive lineman. He, by any stretch of the imagination, is not a starting guard in the NFL. He can step in and start if need be in spot moments, but he is not someone to be expected to be a 17-game starter at that spot. But I would not be surprised if Slowik enjoyed working with Kendrick Green on the interior offensive line, that Green could be a target for Miami in free agency for depth on that interior offensive line. We know Miami needs to fill the left guard and right guard starting spots, but they also need to get the depth behind those 2 new starters they're going to bring in, whether it's the draft or free agency. So I'll keep an eye on Kendrick Green as someone that Miami may target as a backup offensive lineman. And if Miami has more news, rumors come out, we will have you covered here at the channel. So make sure you're subscribed and make sure you also have those notifications turned on like I told you at the beginning of the video so you don't miss a piece of Dolphins news.